Welcome to the Word of Mouth Podcast, a series of honest, inspiring conversations with creatives from all walks of life, some in our industry, others far outside it. What connects them all? Passion, persistence, and the courage to keep creating. So listen in and get inspired. Look up our guest, and if you find yourself nodding along, feeling seen, or more hopeful, hit subscribe. Join our journey, and let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep spreading these stories the way they were meant to be shared, by word of mouth.
We're here today on Word of Mouth Podcast with Rick Hartgrove. We worked together for, I think, 1,000,000 years.
And one.
1,000,001. And we wanted to bring him on board and get his take on the industry, where it's going, where it's been. He's been an integral part of what we do here at Johnny Davis Digital, and it's an honor to have you on a guest on our podcast.
Well, thank you.
So, Rick, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into this crazy business that we call pre-press and all that?
It's pretty much family infused. My dad, when he got out of the Marines, he got into this, and it's been in our family ever since. It's gone all the way down through my daughter does it now.
Yeah.
So it's like you and your dad. You see it, you hear it all the time, and sooner or later you get your feet wet and you find out it's like my dad told me years ago. It's a business that you'll never get rich at, but your family will never do without either. And that's pretty much in a nutshell how it is.
So what did your dad do in the business?
Okay, he started out, he worked his way up from in the bindery, worked in the press room some, and he ended up finding his forte in, he was a stripper, and that used to get a lot of laughs in bars and stuff like that. He says, hey, I'm a male stripper. And he says, well, that's what they called it. It's that you strip film. The technical term for it was lithographer. And he did that all the way up until he retired. And I'd spend my evenings and summers in school helping out whatever print shop he was working for at the time. They'd find me work in the bindery or everywhere else. So before I ever got my start in it, I had a big taste into everything, into the press room, into the bindery, cleaning up, whatever it was. It was a way of making some money on the side. When you're in high school, you got to pay for that gas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Gas and beer.
Gas and beer. You just don't tell Daddy about the beer.
No, you don't tell nobody about the beer. So, so after high school, you went into the service?
I went into Appalachian first.
Okay.
And ended up getting hurt up there playing ball. And then I said, well, I need to do something. Can't sit around off of Mom and Daddy's dime. So let's try Uncle Sam. And my dad thought I was going to go in the Marines like he did, and I fooled him. I did not want to go around with a target on my back. So I had high enough ASVAB scores that I could go in the Air Force and pick a decent career.
Okay.
And after my 4 years in the Air Force, I got out, and first job I ever tried, I about got killed in it. I was doing cable installations, and I was over at UNCG, and I was up under a house where the Walker School of Business is now. And I got into this little small underside of a house, and there was something moving around under there, and I could never figure out what it was until I was on my way out.
Right.
And the flashlight that I was holding in my mouth hit it, and it was two copperheads.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, it took me forever to get back here, and if I'd gotten bit, nobody would have been able to find me or get me out.
Yeah.
So I said, I got to find something else. So I got out and gave it some thought, and I just happened to see in the paper there was an ad for, it was for High Key Color, Jimmy Henson and Dan Kearns' place.
Where was that located at, High Key?
It was off of West Wendover in the business park out there. And Jimmy used to be my dad's supervisor when it was Fisher Harrison.
Okay.
So I knew who Jimmy was, and I figured, well, I'll go out and talk to him. Well, I went in, and they say in this business that family does have connections, and it paid off. And he said, I tell you what, because the work your daddy did all those years, he said, I'm going to hope that some of it rubbed off. I'm going to give you the opportunity. I've got 3 jobs here. I've got a camera operator position, a proofing position, and a scanner position, which at that time was just starting out.
Right.
And he says, now I'm going to send you to the Employment Security Commission, and you're going to have to take a test. It's not a simple test, but depending on your scores, it'll decide which one I let you start in.
So it kind of rated you as far as where they would
Technical abilities
yeah.
and so forth.
Right.
And I scored high enough to get the scanner operator job.
Okay.
So that involved, every 3 months for the first 2 years, there was $1 an hour increase. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't rate it, you were out the door. So you had to produce or get gone.
Now, was that when they had like apprentice programs and journeyman and all that?
They'd already gone beyond that.
They had already gone beyond that.
Yeah,
Because I remember, talking about your dad and back in the day, table strippers, they had like the apprentice and the journeyman, and, they kind of worked their way through all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
so
correct.
So the scanner, that was kind of like if you didn't produce the quantity they needed, then it was like, well, we're kind of done with it.
Yeah, you had to move.
Yeah. So for those of you who watching who don't understand what a scanner is anymore, because now everything's digital, can you tell us a little bit about what that involved, it being a scanner operator?
Okay, scanner operator. There are many different brands, DS, Cytex, but the favorite of all for about anybody that ever ran one was a Hale.
Yeah.
And came out of Germany, and they were developed years ago. Let me just lead into what caused the scanner to even happen.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do not know this.
Well, yeah, this is a lost technology.
Yeah. Back during the Vietnam War, and that's going back a ways, you had the naval pilots and the Air Force pilots would fly over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they were always trying to judge troop movement, figure out where they were going to be tomorrow, so you could set up the ambushes, fight the next day's battles. Well, what they had done, they took the Special Forces folks in the Marines and the Army, and they would go out at night, and they would find the troops, the North Vietnamese, and they would take articles of clothes from them. They would do paint scrapings. They would take doors off of vehicles, anything that had certain colors that were reproducible. And you couldn't see them at night, but they were wanting to find a way to find these vehicles in the dark. Well, the planes, you couldn't fly down through the Ho Chi Minh Trail during the daytime or you get shot down. So at nighttime, when everybody was moving, the jets would fly over low range. You couldn't see them to be shot at or, to shoot them down.
Right.
But you couldn't do any damage to the guys on the ground because you couldn't see them either.
Yeah.
So they tried to develop something that could see just these certain scraps
Those
of color.
colors, yeah.
The colors of the troops' uniforms, things like that. They got so good at developing this stuff that they could take those planes at night and run down through those things and put the images that they captured on film on these scanners and set the scanners up to just look for those colors.
Right.
And the next morning you go in there and take the developed film, and here's troops, tanks, jeeps, everything going down the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
That's crazy.
Number and everything. And it turned the tide in the war. And as far as for aerial bombardment and things like that, well, a lot of people got to thinking, if we can do that with this machine, all these colors that people have been doing camera photography for furniture and stuff like that to bring out all these fine details,
Right.
what could this stuff do if we can get all the dyes and stuff calibrated to where we can bring out the wood grain, the texture, the fabric, and all this? Let's develop that side of it. And
Right.
the scanners were born. And anything that you can see with the naked eye and some of the stuff that you couldn't, the scanners could.
Yeah.
But you had to know how to set it up. Stuff
Right.
could be there, and if you didn't know how to set up, and we're talking hundreds of knobs
Yeah.
on that thing. It wasn't a thing that you could learn overnight.
No, that took some time.
After 2 years, and there were some panels in there that we didn't even open up for the first 2 years we were in it.
Right.
They were the more advanced things. They would give us the journeyman.
Right.
We would get the simple stuff to scan at first. And then as we got more advanced and further along, they would say, well, here's some of the colors that nobody seems to be able to interpolate and reproduce.
Yeah.
So then you got, well, it's time for you to play in this palette.
Right.
and it just advanced from there. And scanners led to bigger and bigger things.
Right.
And then in the end, when we got through with scanning things, we would pass stuff on to what we would call the proofing department, who would take these negatives, and there would be a negative for yellow, magenta, cyan, and black. And they would go in there and proof it. And then people down the line would look at the proof and say, that's a real good match to what we want.
Right.
All right. And then now it goes to what my dad did, the lithographers or the strippers. They would take all that film back there with acetate, and they would strip those things down. And by stripping, they would trim stuff that they didn't need off and line it up with the registration marks that were put on from the scanner, and they would make these pages.
So let's back up a little bit. As far as a scanner goes, now, I ran a scanner for a 380 Hale for a little while. So, looking back at what you were talking about, the photographers would send in transparencies, Fuji's, Kodak, or whatever, and then we would mount them to a drum. And then you would program in, say, like if you had an image that you were going to put into a layout and it needed to be 300%, you would program all that stuff in. You would program, your white balance and your
Midtones,
shadows. Yeah. So you actually had to plug all this stuff into it. So then whenever it scanned into the system and created it digitally, those numbers were translated over digitally to your file, basically. Is that correct?
Correct, as a negative.
And basically from the ones I ran, you had a piece of equipment that was probably 6 foot wide, and you had a scanner drum that was in the middle of the equipment that was probably 3 foot or 2.5 or something.
2.5, 3 foot long, with about an 18-inch diameter.
Yeah, and you had a kind of a laser that came out, and the drum mounted to that laser, and the laser was stable, but that drum spun around that laser, and it read all that information, digitized it. That's the ones that I remember running too, and that it was crazy because, now we go through, say we go shoot an event and have 200-300 images, there you have 10 or 15, negatives or slides, and then you scan that in. That's what creates your digital images versus everything. Everything now seems so instant, they want everything yesterday, but that was truly an art, to reproduce something that was, a hard piece of material and make it digital. It's hard for people to wrap their mind around it, where we're at today from where we were. And I think you and I were lucky coming up in the industry where we did, because we saw both worlds, which is amazing how it's translated.
You knew the end was coming to what you were doing,
right?
But you were there on the front lines of the new equipment coming in, and you knew that, keep my nose clean. And
yeah, I'm gonna get on that. Yeah, I remember whenever Cytex was around. Do you remember Cytex? And then they $250,000 for a piece of equipment, and then Max came in and replaced them, but
with a $2,000 machine.
Yeah, it's crazy. But okay, so then back to table stripping. So once that information was digitized through the scanner, you would take that and output it into film. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you would separate that out from your transparency to cyan, magenta, yellow, black, because that's what prints on printing presses. So then once that was output, you use a scanner. Some of the scanners had film output on them.
Correct.
I can't remember which ones that were. I don't know if the 380 had it on it or not. I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I never worked one of those. I worked the 300, the 300B, the 350, the big boy, the 341.
341. Now, 341 had it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that one.
Yeah, it took its film off of not a sheet like the 350. It had a
Roll. Yeah.
And you could set it for any width you wanted. You could pre-cut it, but it had to fit that drum. And that drum it ended up running a 40-inch diameter piece of film. So it's basically a press sheet.
Yeah, so basically then when you had that scanned information and it was digitized, and then you translated it to the film, that drum would still spin, and then that laser would put the dots in that film to replicate which separation it was, whether it was cyan, magenta, yellow, or black.
Correct.
And then once So like if you were outputting your cyan off of, say if you had 6 or 7 different transparencies that you put on that piece of film, you would output your cyan, it would spin on that drum till it was done. You would pull it off of that drum, and then you would take it into a dark room, and you would run it through that processor, and then that was your cyan, or magenta, or yellow, or black. But you would have to have cyan, magenta, yellow, black to complete an image.
Right. If
Yeah.
you were running a great big image,
Yeah.
you'd have to load it up 4 times.
Right.
But there was times where that you would have stuff for, say, a newspaper or something like that, where they would give you 10 or 12 35 millimeter slides that need to be enlarged about 300%, and each one of them would be the same size. You could go in and pre-program every one of them, the starting point where you would start to scan each image and where you would finish, so you'd have your height and your width.
Right.
And they would fit cyan, magenta, yellow, and black around that drum. And then the next image, it would slow down for a second, then it would pick up that starting point on the next.
Right.
You could scan 12 images on one big piece of film,
Right.
if it was small enough.
Well, and I remember like the way it was connected, and all this had to be done in the dark. Like when you
Right.
loaded your film and you unloaded your film, it all had to be done in the dark. You could turn on the red lights, but everything was vacuum sealed too. Like you would mount the piece of film to the drum, and it was vacuum sealed, and then you'd spin it and make sure no air got in between the drum and the film. So then as it was reading and writing to it, you didn't have any hiccups on it, basically.
Right.
Yeah. So then after, this was a process back in the day, So then after you scanned it, you got your color right, then you output it. And when I say output, you create your seps for it, your separations, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And then you take it into a dark room, and then you load it through there, and then it processes through, and then when it comes out on the other side, you have a finished product, but it's still not a finished product.
Right.
So now walk us through the lithographers or table strippers.
Okay. Well, you'd take the film once it come out of the processor, and you'd have one more final check to make sure there were no streaks, no morays, which a moray is basically if you had say somebody had pinstripes on a shirt running in a certain direction and the scanner's going in a different direction, some colors will hit those different angles.
Right.
And you'll get these waves all through, and that's not going to work very good at all.
Right.
And nobody's going to want that. So you've got to troubleshoot that and figure out another way to work that image to where that don't happen. But anyway, you check for all those things. And once it's all done, you get one final proof out. And there's a proofing person involved. He can go in there real quick and put the colors down. The cyan, he have a cyan film that he could burn through, and he would put it down on paper. Then he would go magenta, then yellow, and then finally black would be all your final detail. And if everybody liked what they saw, it was headed towards the stripping department, lithographers.
Right.
And they would go in there, and they would have already had a layout. They would have already been ahead of the game working it out. If it was for a catalog or if it was for a poster, for instance, they would have already preset the type, already had that shot on the camera in another room, and they'd have everything that they needed. They'd have already built screens to make the certain colors. If somebody, say it was for the PBR rodeo,
Right.
and you had these brilliant yellows and fantastic oranges, they would have already stripped all that in and left holes in that film.
Yeah.
For what you were in there shooting. And when it was done, they would go in and take those holes in the chronar and with some acetate and trying to think of the other.
Is it Rubylith?
Rubylith.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you'd make a hole just enough to let your film image in.
Right.
And they would put all that together so that everything, whatever screens you needed of cyan for the word PBR, whatever you needed for, say, Wrangler, and everything else would be on there. And then here is the cyan negative of what you did. And then they would end up with one huge sheet, tape all over it, tape down on the acetate, and the chronar ready to make a big cyan plate. Then they would do the same thing with everything for magenta, everything for yellow, and everything for black. And that's where the eye strain came in. Yeah. These people sat there all day long with these little bitty eye loops, their face right down on a bright table, and had to line everything up perfect.
I remember walking in over at Graphic Art Services, and that's whenever everybody was smoking at work, and you'd have, I think they had 12 tables set up, so they had 6 tables here and 6 tables, and they were facing each other. And I swear to God, you walked in, it looked like you walked into a pool hall, because it was just, there was a layer of smoke that was over the table strippers, and they were working 12-hour shifts. So, they were chain smoking while they were trying to lay all that out. And, it was, I don't know how they did it, and work the hours that they worked. And then they'd have 12-hour shifts that would come in and cover. And we worked 7 days a week, same as you guys were around the clock too. Everybody was back
we
then.
had 3 days a week. We worked 13 hours and 20 minutes a day. And at the end of 7 weeks of that, you would get a week off. And then you would start the Thursday, Friday, Saturday shift.
Yeah.
For 7 weeks, you would do that. And then on that last Saturday, you got Sunday off.
Right.
Then you come right back in on Monday and started those Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. That was the week you hated. Every 13 or 14 weeks, you had to come in there, and you had 80 hours in 7 days.
Yeah.
And that was rough.
Well, and that was like the standard. Then they'd always want you to work over.
If somebody took vacation, Lord help.
Yeah, or we got to get these pages. Well, so, you look at the industry now compared to then, a page back then, just one page out of a catalog to get it prepped and to get all the steps put together and go through everything to have a final cyan image or or plate, what they called it, final cyan plate, magenta plate, yellow plate. For one page, it might take 2 or 3, 4 days, to get one plate. And then you proofed it, like you were talking about, and there were variations of that: Cromlin proofs, match bent proofs, chroma check proofs, waterproofing, color key, and so then they would proof it, and then that's whenever the QC guy would look at it and say, well, this and this and this needs to be adjusted. So then you save what you can out of it, and then you start the process all over again. So that's where it was. You had to really be precise in what you were doing. Nowadays, we get in a layout and output a page in no time at all. They make corrections, and hell, we might have a catalog out, within a whole catalog within a couple weeks. Where that, a page might take a couple weeks to get it finalized.
Correct.
And it's amazing how the industry shifted.
If you'd have told me 40 years ago, 43, that when I started this, that this would all end up being like it is today.
Oh, I know.
I would have said, what fairy tale, what book have you been reading?
Well,
I'd like to get a chapter out of it.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I remember I worked in proofing for I don't know how many years over at Graphic Art Services. And so Dad, he was my supervisor, and he was over the scanners, and he was over proofing. But then they got in the Kodak proofers, those, and he was talking about how that was going to change everything and revolutionize proofing. And I was like, there's no way it can keep up with us, because I remember we were double proofing. We had, I don't remember the sheet sizes, but they were, huge sheets, and we would run as many proofs up as we could at a time. I was like, there's no way those machines are going to keep up with what we're doing, because we're really moving on it. And, but yeah, it was no time. And then that really replaced what we were doing, and it was quicker, it was more precise. And so you really saw, or you and I, again, we saw the transition of, from what we did to where it is now. And then, did you get into packaging much? Working in packaging much? Did you? Yeah, we did some of that too, with like RJR and that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything has not been as far as color scanning and retouching and stuff like that for me. There was times where that certain areas would slow down a little bit, and they're like, well, I don't have enough for you to do today, but you've got all this other background, so we're going to loan you out to the other department over here for a couple of days. And they get over there and they find out some of this other stuff that they've been struggling with. And it's like, can we get you for a little bit longer? And then next thing you know, you hear about these digital proofers and digital presses.
Right.
Now, that was 20 years ago. Those were coming out. So I ended up getting pulled into that for a while.
See, I was never on the digital presses. Tell us a little bit about that.
The digital presses, there are many types. I've ran the Xerox. Wasn't really a fan of it. It was too dirty as far as...
Is it like a copier, or is
it was exactly like a great big copier, but it had all these multiple trays. So many things could go wrong.
Right.
You had to preset all these drawers. If you were doing a catalog and you would say, okay, the first 12 pages are all going to be the same paper, you had to load all those drawers the same way and all that. If you made a mistake, the paper weight, so many pound paper versus whatever, it would alter your color and stuff like that. You would be in the middle of a huge run, and the belt that would pick up the printing powder and everything else would tear inside the machine. You would do everything in your power to get it back up and correct. And you could take the last book you ran out before the belt broke and the first one after you calibrated everything. And there's just certain things that just didn't line up. And I didn't like that. Yeah. I've always been, I guess it's back in the day, they didn't have ADHD back in those days, but I was a real stickler I wanted perfection.
Right.
And it was the way it had to be. It started with high key color. They did not let anything go out second rate. And it just got groomed in at an early age. But then it finally moved over to where I was working with some HP scanners, or not scanners, but high-end printing machines.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you what, we'd actually print. It's like it's like a scanner in a way.
Okay.
You can go in and you're getting your files generated to you, but on the fly, as the paper is loaded in the back of the machine and comes through, you can say, give me a proof, which is the old printing way. You can get one sheet to come out instead of going to the hopper that's going to go out into the bindery and go straight into production. Right. You can get one and compare it to the proof that someone had, in some cases, days ago. Now it's minutes ago. You can match up to it. And if you didn't like something, then you could use your Photoshop and your color background. You can go over and flip the color screen around and open it up on the computer and say, okay, I'm missing a little cyan here. I'm missing a little magenta here. Let me open it up. You can fix it on the fly. So if you have a Photoshop background or any color knowledge, you are more than valuable to them, because a lot of people, they don't have that information.
So if you couldn't, so before that technology came along, what was the solution to it? How did
you had to stop everything you were doing, take all the paper off, unload all the ink, get the next job ready, and they'd have to go all the way back to square one. Well, not necessarily square one, to the point where that could be corrected at. And usually it would be at a desktop operator's station. He could go in and he basically would be taking information from you if you knew it. And if you were a color person that had the background like I did, they would say, well, what do you think we need? Right. And it's like, well, you need to, in that certain color right there, you need to add 4% more of this, take away so many percent of that, fix that one, and over in this space, do this. And they would go in and do it. And within an hour, usually, that new information is back at that machine. Right. But you didn't sit and wait for an hour.
Yeah, they were already running something
else. There was
two
other jobs you could have done run in and out by then. You had to change all the paper, all the plates inside the machine, but you kept that press running because it's money.
Yeah, you got to keep it hot, yeah. So as far as, your background, you have an extensive background in what we call color theory. Mm-hmm. And, when you keep talking about color, so color theory is, how colors represent against each other, or, with different colors. You explain a little bit to me how you kind of got into that.
It all goes back to the scanning again. Yeah. Stuff would come off the scanner and you would go up to the viewing booth, and for the first few years you basically scanned and you would get to see a little bit of what you had done, and they'll bring you up to the viewing booth where the people above you would look at it and they would say, you did a good job, everything's like it's supposed to be. But I mean, that's good for them, but it's hard for you to learn. But if they go in there and say, the sky's not quite blue enough, or the whole image has a cool cast to it, and we need to get that out. And you go in there and it's like, well, can you explain that? And well, you kind of go in the image and look and see. And for instance, if you're in a room shot and it's, say, a scientific room or a room that's got lots of color and the lights are truly balanced and everything's where it's supposed to be, and you can look over on a table or something another, and there is a piece of paper that you know is supposed to be white,
Right.
and you look at it, well, that piece of paper has a blue cast. Well, if you go back to the scanner and probe into that, and you go and you read the numbers that the computer that's attached to the scanner reads, and
And when you say numbers, that's like, it's densities, right?
it's densities.
Okay, so densities, to our viewers who maybe don't know what densities are, can you explain that just a little bit?
Now, the densities, you've got, if something is as far as the negative film goes, if you're trying to get something that's very, very light like
Right.
that, and basically that's going to be a solid density on negative film.
Right.
It's going to be black on film. You can hold it up, you can't see through it. Whereas if it's black or a solid color, it's going to be clear film. That means that in its place, whatever color you're printing on that press at that time is going through, it's going to flood it.
Right.
So on a piece of paper, say you had a piece of paper like that on that table, and this right here is a little cream. So if you were to scan into that, what you're going to get is maybe a 2 to 3% dot, or 2 to 3% yellow showing up, and 1 to 2 cyan and magenta.
So density is the amount of dot that's in a certain area of an image,
Right.
basically, and it's what makes that image up. So if it's everybody's shooting digital cameras now, so RGB, red, green, blue. So the density for an RGB image was the dots that are in that particular image. And nowadays you use like an eyedropper to measure that. Mm-hmm. Where back in those days we used densitometers. And so the densitometers would give us how much total ink was in certain areas. And we didn't want to, so, like today in Photoshop, you have your highlight, your quarter tone, mid-tone, three-quarter tone, and shadow areas. So, if your quarter tones, you want them reading like in the 25% density range. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then same with mid-tones, that would be like 50%. Three-quarter tones would be like 75%. And then your blacks are black, like 100%.
But you never really want to print
Yeah.
in the solid, because all ink, when it hits paper, it spreads out a little bit.
Right. So,
And the bigger the dot, the bigger the spread.
so tell us, which is fascinating to me, because it's like you say, it does spread out. So back in the day, we had what's called trap, and we don't even have trap anymore.
No, everything's perfect.
Yeah, but what is trap? Explain that a little bit, because that's always been fascinating to me, is being able to figure out what press it's going on, who's printing it, how much trap is needed, so that everything doesn't get weird.
Okay, trap is, go back to the rodeo poster. If you've got nice, bold black rules and everything around the image, and you've got a bright orange, a bright yellow, and some brilliant light blues, and you're wanting it all to fit, when they lay those images down and put those colors on top of each other, it's not going to be an exact fit, because as you go through a printing press, things are going to move.
It shifts a little bit, and there's tolerances.
Right, and it's usually around 7/1000ths.
Yeah.
And if you can add a 7/1000th to all your lighter colors, where it's going to go under the darker colors, no matter if the press shifts the slightest little bit or not, you will not have those little white ghosty halos around
Right.
it.
You won't have like a little line.
Right. Be a thin line.
Yeah.
And believe me, nothing will lose a printer a catalog job or any future work than having a problem with trap. But nowadays, with all the new equipment, everything is butt fit.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah, it
your
just
proofs
lines
come
up
out butt fit.
perfectly.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's crazy. And used to, say like if you had a yellow color and a blue color and they were butt up against each other, and then you had your trap, so then you got a bonus color, you got like a green.
Green.
Yeah, that was that fine line. But that way, as it shifted going through the press, it wouldn't create a white line. So
Right.
the bonus color was acceptable because it kind of blended. where the white line would be like, oh, there's a problem here, somebody missed something. So yeah, that's a big transition to where we're at now, where everything is so precise and so quick. And so yeah, it's like I say, I think we came along in the industry. I feel like we came along in the industry. Well, I do now. At the time, I thought it was all bullshit, but I feel like we really were able to get a hold of a lot of information that, generations like before us, they never saw it, and the generations that are in it now, they never saw it. So we're kind of walking in the best of both worlds,
Yeah, we hit it right.
Yeah, we really did. And at the time, I felt like I didn't want to learn all this stuff, and because I just want to do my job and go home. But then it was like, in order to do it, you had to cross over and learn scanning and the desktop work and the color work and then the retouching work. And
you didn't want to turn down any new opportunities because it might be the only chance you get at it.
And it changed on a regular basis.
I watched it happen at PBM. There was 48 of us in the digital department upstairs. It was
when you started over there, right?
Yeah, it was 12 operators per shift, four shifts. There was one color guy, a scanner operator, on each shift.
Right.
Well, and then there was me. I was actually the color department supervisor, so I worked with all the other scanner operators. And then if they were busy doing things, I would keep the scanner going until they would get caught back up. But I was the one running up and down the stairs and doing all this in between, making sure that there was continuity between the shifts. And we could see the stuff coming, all the changes.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that 48, in a matter of 2 years, I watched 48 people go to 24 people to 18 people. And there at the end, it was one left.
Yeah.
And I was the only one left. Yeah. And that's when they said, we're going to loan you out to a different department. We don't want you going anywhere, but we can use what you know down here. There's a thing coming along called digital printing, and you'll be perfect for it. So I'm like, okay. And then I did that for a while, and it led to, I don't know that I like getting all this ink all over me. It's not really what I had trained for all these years.
Right.
And then some studios started hiring. They wanted people that could do Photoshop work and stuff in-house.
Yeah.
And that's the direction I went. And that's where I still am.
There was a transition, that you had your pre-press houses, know, and I worked for pre-press houses for years. And then the printers started having their own pre-press houses. And then it went from that to the pre-press houses kind of died out.
Yep.
Then studios, were opening up, and there were more and more of them, but they didn't have, not all of them had printing and that kind of thing. So then they started their own pre-press houses, the studios did. And then, like for us, we're kind of a mismatch of all kinds of different things between, studio and pre-press. And so I think that's the direction the industry has really gone. And then you have a lot of people, contract workers who are doing all this stuff from home. But, you and I know that it's hard to find somebody with the color. The color experience is what is key here, I think.
Yeah. Because
you've got that nailed down where a lot of people don't understand that, numbers never lie, and if you learn the numbers and how they work for you, you can really make color work,
Yeah.
But it's a lot of people are so, pretty pictures. Let's just make it a pretty picture. But then in the furniture industry, that's not necessarily the case so much. They want it beautiful, of course, but they want it to represent their brand, whatever, the color of the fabric or the wood is. So tell us a little bit about, like we shoot for a lot of different companies, and we work with other photographers who shoot for a lot of different companies. So whenever they send stuff in to us, what's kind of the process that you go through to make sure at the end of the day they get the best product coming back out to them?
There are a lot of photographers out there. There's good photographers, there are so-so photographers, and then there are fantastic photographers. I like working with the fantastic photographers.
Yeah.
They make my life a lot easier.
Right.
I get balanced images when they come in. I don't have to go out and do a lot of cleanup. People are expecting me to turn images fast and accurate, and so I can do more.
Right.
And if a photographer is, some of them actually get paid per shot, they're going to go fast. When you go fast, you miss little things.
Right.
You leave trash on the table and stuff like that, and you get this thing that I despise more than anything in the business. It's a retoucher's job. Let the retoucher fix it.
Yeah.
And it takes time to go and take a drink can out of a picture that somebody could have walked over and picked up.
Right.
Didn't take
Well,
the
it's
time to
being
look
conscious of
Yeah.
what you're doing.
But we don't really do a lot for people like that. People have gotten beyond that. What I'm looking for is images that they weren't afraid to use light. The more light you use and the better you control it, the better the client loves it, because the mood is there. It's not just a flat shoot.
Right.
It's like you're there yourself. You can reach out and touch it. And then you go in there and you're still going to have stuff that there's certain things in the manufacturing process that this piece of wood, to do what they wanted to do, they'll have somebody put some, I'm not going to say fluorescence, but they may put some fluorescent dyes in some of the lacquers to make this nice, rich, warm cherry finish. And camera just can't see it.
Yeah, the sensors just can't pick it up.
Can't pick it up. And
Or they have like a sheen on it.
Mhm.
You know, say there's a sheen on it, but underneath you have warm tones. But that sheen, you can't shoot through that sheen so much,
Right.
you know. And then you have to go in and isolate different colors and kind of bring them forward. And then we run them through our proofer, you know. And then you look at those compared to wood samples and
they'll bring the samples in, and sometimes they'll shock you. They'll come in and you think you've done a good job compared on what you were given, and you run a proof, and it's like, well, that looks a lot like what's on my screen. And then they'll say, well, here's a wood chip actually from that. Here's the leaf from that table. And it's like, holy cow, can you get there? And it's like, you can always get there. I just got to see what's going to have to happen to make it happen. And sometimes you go in and you rob Peter and pay Paul. You subtract some colors, you get some contaminants out, and add some more value to some of the other. And that's when you get into the Photoshop, all the sub-menus that's in there. There's always tools that can help you out. But there are instances that you just cannot make it happen. And you get as close as anybody can, and that's all you can do. But I'm going to say 95% or better. Most of the people that we do work for, they like to be able to take that wood chip or that fabric panel and lay it right there on the proof and not be able to see it 100% where it starts and the other one stops. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
And that's what I like doing. That's my fun. That's my puzzle.
yeah,
I get to
getting all
have fun
that to
doing
line
that.
up. Well, so the way, you know, translating that digital photography today to printing, you know, a lot of our customers, they want to go from RGB, right, to CMYK because they're going to take this to a press, you know, and then some customers just want us to leave it RGB because they're going to run it through a digital press that will convert it through their RIP or, you know, whatever kind of stuff with that. So we give them the most accurate possible. But in saying that, like what you were saying, sometimes it's not possible to get where you want to go with what you have. So, you know, I've known you to take, again, going back to printing terminology, you know, plates out of a digital image. You have a cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And then I've seen you take, say, if you needed, you know, something to warm up from this to that, but there just wasn't any information in the magenta channel of that image in Photoshop, you'll take the cyan channel and copy it and paste it into magenta to get you closer, and then you go through curves and different adjustments like that to kind of dial it in more.
Correct.
So there's a lot of manipulation that you do people don't ever see, you know, and that's from,
And it's all trial and error.
right, and that's from your background, but you're applying your background that you've learned over the years between the scanner, the digital printing, and all that stuff to where you're at now?
Yeah, you look at an image and go, it's missing so much detail, and you think back when I was scanning something like this, if it was missing, the only way I could get that, I need to be able to see in a cyan plate, I need to see pretty much what's happening over here in this magenta plate. And I can go in there and say, well, okay, in Photoshop, I can go to the magenta channel and see exactly what's there. And it's the same shape, it's the same image. Why can't I take that, read what I need from the cyan that's there in, say, the lighter areas and the darker areas, but take this magenta plate, drop it into the cyan plate, and now make what I can see that I couldn't see, the numbers that they should be, and all of a sudden grain that was never there is there. And everybody's like, how did you do that? And that's like, well, that's why I like this job. Yeah. It's things that somebody else can't think of. And I'm not by no means the one that figures this stuff out. There's people ahead of me that got this. I've always had good teachers. Probably one of the best teacher I ever had was Bernie Bohigas at High Key Color. And he held nothing back from me. He had nothing to gain. Back, a lot of people will treat you like I'm going to keep all my little secrets to myself.
Right.
You're just going to be flooded with work.
Yeah.
But be a team player and spread it around, and you might get some weekends.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But he was very instrumental, and he told me things that a lot of people that was going through training at the same time I was did not get told some of the things that I got told. We really got along. We were the same age, went to opposing high schools, but he just had a knack for it. And we just, it's kind of like me and you. We were like two brothers, didn't know we were kin or not.
Yeah.
And he taught me everything. And during that first couple of years when it's slow going, he pretty much said, if you want to learn and you want to move up ahead of these other guys, you come in here on your days off and I'll show you stuff.
Oh,
and I'm like, I had nothing to lose.
Well, and you were smart.
Time.
Yeah, you were smart doing it because it puts you further down the road and stuff, versus, well, I'll just learn it when I get there. But, you were interested in advancing yourself and knowledge, and it's really paid off over the years.
Oh, yeah. But now you get a little older like me, and I'm not so interested about all the new things because the new things,
yeah,
I can do it the old way. It's time-wise, it's not that big a difference. It's just a matter of either me taking the time to push two buttons versus somebody else pushing one.
Right.
And by the time I learn which button and all that, I'm already done the way I do it. So it's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And this is an old dog.
Well, and you've earned a right to start cutting back, and we were talking about that, and you're looking at taking some time, starting to phase yourself out a little bit more. And I know you've got a big interest in. I mean, you're an amazing artist. I've seen your lighthouse work.
Well, thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what the next chapter in your life is, and seeing where you go with things. And like I do truly, I think it's been amazing working together, and it's fun to see where you end up from here.
I want to do what me and my dad never really got to do. All we ever talked about was not having a big business, but having a small business together, right. Doing what he did when he first started out. Him and a couple of buddies of his, they started their own little print shop in the beginning.
Right.
And they had a ball.
Yeah.
And then they finally realized, we're going to have to go big or go home.
Yeah.
And they all split up and joined the bigger companies and became supervisors and all this stuff. But my dad didn't live long enough for him and I to do that. So, but my youngest daughter, she's a subcontractor doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Not necessarily in furniture, but she does design work and things for not really the furniture end like I do, but she does the fabric side for some places. And she designs logos for Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools, Guilford County schools. Nowadays, they change logos like people change underwear.
Yeah.
Every sport, every every month there's a new T-shirt for something. It's so easy to make T-shirts and screen printing now. She is constantly busy with that. But I would like to be able to help her expand her business. And it's kind of hard for her to do that. People find out from other jobs that she's completed who she is, and they'll send her a phone message or a text message, and she just dives right into it. She doesn't really get a chance to get out and see her work or to meet these people. It's all, she works from home.
She's grinding it out.
Yes, she is. And I'd like to be able to sit there and say,
she's amazing at what she does. You know, she's helped us out with
I'm totally blown away
projects.
and I'm seeing all this new equipment that's coming out through her. It's stuff that I've never got a chance to play with, but it's like the mugs that I brought in here for everybody and stuff like that. It's a whole nother process, a whole nother world, and she loves it. And I might one day grow to like it too, but I want to be able to take on that part to help her with the physical, the labor part of it,
right? And then
so that she can get out of the house and do some things.
Well, that'd be good. I mean,
So-
that'd be a good thing to get into.
And
I know
that's
she'd
how
really
I want to
appreciate
end it.
Yeah.
Just me and her doing our thing, and
Well, and fishing.
that and fishing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you gotta go fishing. I'm still waiting for you to get
Come
in a boat.
October the 18th, line will be getting wet.
Well, that'll be
Outer
good.
Banks, if the hurricane don't mess it up.
Well, I'm hoping it won't. Well, Rick, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us on our podcast.
Not
I'm
a
sure
problem
there's
at
going
all.
to be a lot of people that have a lot of questions as what in the hell we were talking about. I'm one of them, but I've really enjoyed this, and
I have too. It's probably going to shock a lot of people. If people's been around as long as I have, like, he's still alive.
he's still kicking. Well, I would like to close by saying we were working in a couple other areas of the studio today. So when the lights were going off, there was another photography going on. So if you guys see that in the podcast, that's what it was. It wasn't the world coming to an end. But yeah, we appreciate your time and look forward to having you on again. And thank you again, Rick. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.